What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the One-on-One series. It's been a while since we've been with you guys. We've had some other things going on, but I got a special guest on the line today. He's a man of many hats and many different professions and careers and all of that good stuff. I got Mr. Steve Wise out of the Pensacola, Florida area. How you doing today, Steve?
Oh, I'm doing pretty good. Thank you for having me on.
No problem, no problem. Steve is really a man of many talents, from filming to directing to organizations and all type of different things. So one of the first things I want to talk about is your career in film. Just recently, you just finished, shooting a short film that you're doing. You've already done a short film once before. So tell us about that part of Steve. We want to know more about that.
Well, actually, I've done many films before. I have 6. This is now number 7 as a director, and I've produced 4 other films, including a feature film. So, I haven't directed a film in a few years, so I wanted to get back behind the camera. And so we just got finished shooting Survey, which is kind of I wouldn't exactly say post-apocalyptic because you don't really know what time period exactly it is, but it has that flavor of storyline to it.
Awesome. And what other things do you do in film? I think I've heard before you work for the local news station as well.
Yes, I work for Channel 3 here in Pensacola, WEAR. I work in the creative services department, so we make commercials.
Awesome. And that's something I've been digging into. A lot of people said I have a very unique voice, and I've been working with a friend of mine who works for a news station up here to start getting my voice out on some different commercials and radio ads. So I'm starting to get all my equipment together and microphones and soundboards and all that type of stuff, so it's going together pretty well. Now, I also know that you do a little writing as well. What type of things have you written?
Well, I have been focusing most of my adult life on screenwriting. My big claim to fame was that a co-writer and I wrote a screenplay for a Batman film that had been in development at Warner Brothers for a couple of years, and then when they finally decided to move on, they went through several different projects before settling on Batman Begins. But in the last few years, we've gotten a little bit of accolades online where websites like IFC, the Independent Film Channel, named it one of the best unproduced Batman screenplays that are floating around out there. And so it's kind of cool that for some reason people are discovering this. And it's been a few years since we wrote that. But
so
I write screenplays. I also have a book on Amazon of short stories that I've written. It's called Portals of the Mind.
So how was it to write that Batman screenplay, and how did you get started or get into that universe?
Well, my co-writer and I had just come back from a meeting in California with Warner Brothers, and where we were pitching some other screenplays that we wrote. And we didn't like the direction that the series at that time was going, and we decided to call Warner Brothers and pitch our idea. And they said, yeah, that sounds great. Write it. So we wrote it, did a couple drafts for them, and then they came back and said, we're not sure if we're going to move forward with another Batman movie right now, so just hold on. And it was sitting on the desk of the president of the company at the time, Lorenzo Di Bonaventura, and we talked to him periodically over the next couple of years, and finally they just said, now we're going to be moving on to something different and basically starting the series over again. And,
right.
So it was a little bit of a frustrating experience because we knew that we had something that at least we liked, and Warner Brothers liked it enough to go to that extent with it. But that's the way things go in Hollywood. Nothing is a sure bet. And I mean, you look at the directors of the Han Solo movie; they just got fired after spending 4 months working on this film. So
Exactly.
it's, anything could happen at any time.
Right. So what are your thoughts on that? Because I know you're a Star Wars fan. And there's some other questions I want to ask you, in regards to the Warner Brothers ordeal. But I'm looking at this from a perspective, and I listen to John Campea a lot. John Campea made something very clear for me to understand. At the beginning, what he said was Lucasfilm and Disney should have known the type of directors that Lord and Miller were, and vice versa. Lord and Miller should have known the type of company and type of, hold that they hold so dear to Star Wars with. And John Campbell felt like that relationship should have never been cemented in the beginning. So what are your thoughts on, this ordeal that's going on over there at the Han Solo movie?
Well, first off, Kathy Kennedy, the producer, has been around for a while. She has produced some of the biggest movies ever made, from Jurassic Park to, all the way down to working with Spielberg on E.T. and the Indiana Jones movies. And, just she knows what she's doing. So for people to say she should have known what kind of movie they make, yes. However, you don't go into hiring directors, in this case plural, for a movie without fully vetting the person and feeling like there's a certain trust there and that you're on the same wavelength as they are. If right from the beginning she suspected that they would start improvising and that they were trying to make a comedy, and kind of from what the reports say, a wacky comedy, as opposed to having an adventure film with some humor in it, I don't think she would have hired them in the first place. But so there was a disconnect somewhere from the time that they got hired to the time they got fired, where
right.
somewhere along the way, communication broke down. And based on the reports, it sounded like they went ahead and just did whatever they wanted to do instead of doing the movie that the producers thought they were making. And maybe there was a miscommunication where they truly thought they were hired to do their thing. But obviously that's not what happened. So yeah, I kind of feel like if you're walking into a Star Wars film, you should play in their sandbox.
Uh-huh.
And, you want to try something a little bit different than just the same thing. Rogue One was essentially a war movie, and it had that feel to it, and definitely had a different type of ending than what we were used to. It wouldn't be bad to have a movie that had, focused more on humor, like Guardians of the Galaxy, for instance. However, you still have to be true to what's written. And if you're discarding what Lawrence Kasdan wrote, I think there's a problem.
Right. Now, another question I have for you. For those out there who are listening and they want to get into writing and they want to get into film and things of that nature, the world that you've been in for so long, what advice would you have for them?
If you're wanting to get into writing, first off, decide what you want to write. If you're wanting to write screenplays as opposed to prose fiction, those are two different animals. And in fact, I'm kind of getting more into trying to veer into prose writing. And I have this book of short stories. I'm working on a novel right now as well. But what I would say is learn your craft. Learn everything you can about, if you're wanting to focus on screenwriting, great. How can you make that happen to the best of your ability? I have judged a few screenwriting contests, for instance, and I've been part of various online communities in screenwriting, and I've read a lot of scripts. And it just seems like there's a good portion of people out there that they want to be writers, but they don't want to do the legwork that it takes to write. And screenwriting is not easy. It is a very specific craft. You have to get the formatting right. You have to, tell the story in a way that doesn't feel natural to most people, and it's very difficult. And hit all the beats that are expected of you. So learn your craft. If you're wanting to get into prose writing, that's a completely different animal. And one other thing I need to say about screenwriting is it's very hard in this climate right now to get your screenplay sold to Hollywood. So if you're starting off as a screenwriter, write something that could be done independently. Don't try to write another Star Wars. Try to write something that could be done low budget and use a service like Inktip, or, try to talk with independent filmmakers and, try to get your screenplay into their hands, because that's the best way to go.
And that's great advice. Like you said, don't try to rewrite Star Wars. It's like trying to create the wheel all over again, And that's as I say, it's very poignant advice. And I think that's where a lot of people who really do have great original ideas, they get stuck at sometimes. They go trying to write, a movie like Saving Private Ryan. They go and try to write a movie like Star Wars. They go and try to write the next superhero movie rather than writing what's actually coming from them. It's easy. Anybody can sit down on the computer and type in the galaxy far, far away, but what about a multiverse far, far away? What about, something original,
Right.
So
well, and, one of the pieces of advice that's often said is don't think about budget when you're first writing. Just write what comes from your heart and then manipulate it afterwards. Well, that's good advice if you're just wanting to write for the sake of writing. But if you're wanting to write for the sake of getting your work sold and trying to actually, have it produced, you have to think about what, who's going to buy this? Who's going to make it? Who's going to watch it? And so at that point, you start thinking about, well, what is reality? Hollywood just isn't buying screenplays right now. They're looking at tentpole movies for things that have been done before, remakes and sequels and comic books that are turned into movies. And, at one point it used to be just pretty much novels turned into movies. You don't really see that much anymore. It's usually, video games, things like that, where if it's not already a property, they're generally not interested in it unless you're someone like Christopher Nolan that can bring them a project and say, I'm doing this as my next film, and they go, okay. So you really have to think about, okay, you're going to put this screenplay into a contest. If that's the case, who cares about the budget? If that's all you're wanting to do is put it into the contest to try to win awards. But if you're really serious about getting it produced, think about, how many characters are in it. Think about how many locations you have. Think about what the page count is. All these things drive the budget and make it either attractive to a producer or where they'll say, it's just not what we're looking for.
And I'm that way when it comes to my videos. When I do my YouTube channel, like I said, I used to belong to an original organization, for you guys who don't know, and I decided to branch out and start my own thing. And my thought process was, how can I do something different than what I did before? How can I do something different than what Black Nerd is doing, than what Collider is doing, than what Jeremy Johns and Charlie over there at Emergency Awesome is doing? And I talked to a lot of different people, my man Kevin Garlington and Whitney Moore and even Jeremy Branch. And I'll say, you have to just have to be you. And
right.
That's what comes off in my videos. And like I said, I think today is officially makes month 5, and I'm at over 45,000 views on YouTube. So,
cool. Congratulations.
I really appreciate it. It's just being myself in my videos and coming off with my own way and style of doing things, and even doing different things like interviews such as these. Like, you may see my channel and see the comic books and see the superhero movies and see Power Rangers, but interviews, I like doing other stuff. I like interviewing people. I like getting to know people and being able to spread the wealth and spread knowledge, because that's what we need in today's society. We need people like you, Steve, and people like me and people everywhere spreading knowledge to those who may not know what path that they may want to go on, but when they can hear somebody say, hey, things are going to happen, you're going to have struggles, and you're going to have successes. And like in your story, you mentioned when you first started writing, you reached up to the stars and you were there, but it might necessarily didn't go your way, but you still have a success story. You're still doing the things that you're doing, and people need to hear things like that rather than just saying, yeah, just go for it. No, people need to learn the reality. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, definitely, because I don't know. All my life, I was kind of called a dreamer to some degree because, I was always thinking about, here's things that I want to do in the future. When I was a little kid, I've been making movies since I was 8 years old, and I've been telling stories ever since I could write, and that's pretty much what my whole goal in life has been, is to be a storyteller in some way, either through the written word or through the visual medium. And so the advice that my parents gave me was, well, it's okay to pursue film, but get a business degree also. Well, I didn't really listen to them with that, but it's good advice, because now I'm having to try to take care of business aspects of things, and maybe having a few classes under my belt would have helped. But primarily, kind of like what I was saying before, learn your craft. If you're going to be going into film, and to be a filmmaker, learn how to do it. Filmmaking is a collaborative art form. There's a lot of people that are involved with that, from the producers to directors to the makeup artists to the camera operators to the sound guys. By the way, Jeremy Branch, who you mentioned a little bit ago, was one of our sound recordists on the set of Survey, the film, the short film that we just did. But learn your craft and hone into what you think you want to do. And there's a whole wide variety of different things that you can do within that umbrella called film. But if you want to be a podcaster, if you want to do something else that's creative, go for it. But learn the basics. Learn what you need to do, not only from the artistic standpoint, but also from the business standpoint. How can you monetize this? If you're doing it as a hobby, great. Go for it. I mean, there's a lot of hobbyists in the world. If you want to make a profession out of it, how do you go about doing that? What are the steps that you need to take to be able to make money and make a living? And that's the hard part for a lot of people.
And I looked at it the same way as well. Like I said, doing my YouTube channel, I always wonder, how can I get, not necessarily how can I do what I see everybody else doing on YouTube, but how can I get to that level to do something like they are already doing? Like a lot of guys on YouTube, they're sponsored by different people. They take trips, they travel, they do this, they do that. And as soon as I found out about the great thing on YouTube called monetization, and I've been doing pretty well in it, and I've been reaching out to a lot of smaller companies I know, like working to do little smaller sponsorships, like T-shirt companies that from people that I've met, just conversating on Facebook, like, hey, if you send me some T-shirts, I'll wear your T-shirts in my videos and advertise your business in my videos. You got to start somewhere. And that's one thing I like about what I'm doing. I like about what you do. But before we jump over to the hat that Steve Wise wears, I want to ask you, what do you think about the word consistency? It's a word that has flowed through this series of interviews that I've been doing, and it's never said. It's always implied. So, what do you think about the word consistency?
Consistency? Well, it's something that sometimes I have a hard time doing because there's so many things that I'm doing in my life. And, I mean, I'm sitting in front of the computer right now working on a commercial for Pensacon. So it's, you know, to try to get into a routine is often very difficult for me. But I guess where you need to be consistent is to set those goals and to stay with those goals. You know, it's I mean, this is not anything I'm coming up with. I mean, it's been stated a lot in the past. Make a long-term goal and then make short-term goals. And so you can reach a short-term goal. You can say, hey, you know, okay, I'm going to write a screenplay. Great. How long is the screenplay going to be? Maybe 10 pages. Okay, so I've made that goal. I'm going to write a 10-page script. There, I've met that goal. Okay, now what I'm going to do with it? Well, I'm going to start trying to find actors for it. So I'm going to give it to different actors that I know to read and get feedback. Okay, so I've set that goal. I've completed that goal. And so by the time that you go through these series of goals and staying consistent with that vision of what you're doing, then suddenly your long-term goal is reached. And, you know, the survey, what we just did, you know, the short film, I came up with the idea, I don't know, a few months ago, I think like 3 months ago, and I wrote it, and it's like, well, is this something that's worth trying to pursue? A lot of people said yes. They gave me some positive feedback. And someone said, well, why don't you try to raise money through Indiegogo? Okay, never done that before. Started it, and we had a successful campaign, and we had 2 days to shoot this thing with 30 people on the set, and we got it done. Despite bad weather and all sorts of other obstacles, we were staying consistent with what our goal was. And, you know, and we stayed on track. You know, as they say in Star Wars, we stayed on target. So, if that answers your question, kind of a roundabout way.
And we have to be consistent. We have to. We really can't. We can't do what we do in everyday life. Not even just with these, you know, these professions or these side hobbies or, you know, what we do in our, you know, careers. We have to, just to get through life, period, we have to be consistent. Now, I want to jump over to one of your other hats, and you already mentioned it, and that's the one and only Pensacon. Pensacon, for me, was my very first comic convention. Very first comic convention, and it was back in 2015, and I loved every last bit of it. Came back the next year, I was able to participate behind the scenes and do some different panels, met some amazing celebrities. Came back this year as just a fan, just seeing what was going on, and got to meet Jason David Frank, one of my big time fans. I'm a big fan of Jason David Frank, and even got a chance to do an interview with him as well. So
nice.
Yes, you know, I reached out to him on Instagram and, you know, made a video about, you know, how I just loved the chance to meet him, and his people reached out to me, and I got a chance to do an interview with him. So it's on the Fans of the Anonymous YouTube channel if you guys want to check out my interview with Jason David Frank. But let's talk about how you got into Pensacon. How did you get started with that?
Well, interestingly enough, it was because of film production. I started working for a company called Kinematic Entertainment, which I was brought in to produce a short film that they were doing, and ended up just kind of staying. And this was right before, as they were gearing up for the first year of Pensacon. And at that time, it was basically anybody who was there around ended up getting, you know, an assignment, and basically was asked, can you do this? So I was asked if I could oversee transportation, so I said sure. It wasn't, I mean, it was a heavy responsibility, don't get me wrong, but I didn't feel like I was, you know, in the mix as much as some of the other people that had been there right from day one. I ended up getting more and more involved in the weeks leading up to Pensacon. But it was kind of cool because I was the person at the airport greeting the celebrities as they got off the plane that first year. So literally, I was the first face they saw from Pensacon. We had some issues with weather, with fog at the airport that prevented planes from landing. It was an interesting experience. But after that year, the first year, the opportunity came available for me to move into programming, and that became basically my full-time job, and for the longest time. And so, got into basically overseeing the panels, overseeing the moderators, overseeing the schedule, the master schedule of the convention, making sure that, everything fit in where it was supposed to be and was, running smoothly.
And that's what I was able to tell. Like I say, my first year at Pensacon, I was just awestruck. I literally drove all the way back to Montgomery, Alabama, with my eyes still wide open, like, whoa, like what was I just a part of? What did I just witness? Because it's a great convention. I spent a lot of money. I got to meet a lot of people. Like I said, that very first year I got to meet, the Power Ranger actors, and, just that alone was amazing. So how do you think that you have grown over the years as Pensacon has grown?
How have I grown personally?
Right.
I never really expected to ever work for a comic book convention. I've been going to cons since I was in college, of various sizes, and having lived in Orlando for a number of years, we had MegaCon and the FX show and, some smaller conventions there. So I was used to going to that kind of environment, and, seeing what most of the shows in this area were like, which I'm not meaning to badmouth them at all, because there's room for every size and shape of convention and themes and whatnot. But most of them were small. Most of them were very singular in what their theme was, whether it's anime or horror or whatever. Pensacon, we were trying to be a little bit more ambitious. We were trying to be a little bit more inclusive with the different genres that were represented. And so, we were trying to do something just a little bit bigger, and it kind of exploded on us. I think that, I had worked in logistics in the past as far as doing scheduling and whatnot, so that skill kind of helped out with what I'm doing now. But how have I grown? Biggest is I'm part of the community now. I before Pensacon, nobody knew me, and I was just kind of, fairly new to this area. And now it's kind of hard to walk downtown without running into someone I know or someone who knows me. So that might be maybe not so much positive sometimes.
Well, most definitely. So as you continue to progress with Pensacon, as you continue to progress with your film and your writing, what do you look forward to the most going towards the future?
What do I look forward to the most? I'm really trying to get back into creativity. I love going to Biloxi, where 3 Alarm Comics is, for instance, because anytime that they have some special gathering, there's all these comic book artists that are friends of mine now that have been guests at Pensacon, and I love going and hanging out with them because it's a creative environment. I'm making friends within the film community here in the Gulf Coast, which is a very small community, by the way, and I'm enjoying reaching out in different directions creatively. And having done Survey, that kind of scratched my itch to direct again, but only to some degree, because I want to do bigger, better projects. I'm excited for this, and we still have a long way to go post-production, and I can't wait for people to see it because the footage looks just amazing, and the acting is phenomenal, better than I could ever have asked for. But I'm wanting to do more writing and obviously do more film productions. So, with my limited time, it's a lot of juggling and squeezing in things into, the time that I do have. I'm working 2 jobs. So, and, both of them are dealing with the creative world in one respect or another. But yeah, I just wanted to do my own thing and trying to make a name for myself in some respects, I guess.
Most definitely. So, tell us a little bit about Pensacon 2018 coming up, and where we can find you as well.
Where you can find me? You mean at Pensacon or just online?
Period. Your different links, your websites, what you have out there, where we can find your book that you have written.
Well, first off, at Pensacon, we recently announced John Barrowman as a guest. He of course, from Doctor Who and Torchwood and Arrow and Legends of Tomorrow. Fan favorite. We got a huge response for him, so we're looking forward to having him with us. We've got the Power Ranger reunion with 5 different people from Power Rangers, I believe. We haven't announced all of them yet. Let's see, we've got a Fright Night reunion. So the actors from Fright Night are going to be with us. We've got the 2 now grown but kids from The Adventures of Pete and Pete. They're just kind of cool. We've got, for the old timers, we've got a reunion of the cast of Land of the Lost. We've got several wrestlers. Kevin Nash is one of them. Lita, Amy Dumas is another. And, so we try to. We've got several people from Star Wars. We've got Brian Herring, who created BB-8, and he's going to bring the BB-8 puppet with him. We've got Paul Blake, who played Greedo, and a few others. Of course, we always have Game of Thrones guests, and we've got a couple, from there. So there's a little bit for everybody. You should have no problem finding someone that you like, or you like their work. Chris Sarandon, from Fright Night, of course, from Princess Bride, the voice of Jack Skellington, he's going to be with us. So it's pretty exciting. As far as where to find me, if you go to StephenJWise.com, that's Stephen with PH, and Wise is spelled W-I-S-E, StephenJWise.com, that's my website. Haven't updated it a little bit because I've been a little busy, but there you can find links to my Vimeo page to see some of the video projects I've done in the past. You can see some, go to my IMDb page. You can check out my Amazon page where you can find my Batman script, as a matter of fact. And you can find Portals of the Mind on Amazon as well. Check out surveyfilm.com. That's surveyfilm.com for more information about the short film that I just directed.
Most definitely. Steve, we really do thank you for joining the one-on-one series today. It was a very great interview. Hopefully you guys really learned something about all these different careers and different avenues that you can want to be a part of. And if you don't know who we are, we're Fandoms Anonymous. That's FANDOMSANONYMOUS. We're all over social media. Right here on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Hit the notification bell for future videos. Also, head over to Facebook with our Facebook group. Join our Facebook group for discussions where we have each and every single day. And also hit the like on the Facebook fan page. Also, head over to Instagram where we're at Fandoms_Anonymous17. Don't forget, we got a lot of stuff coming up. We got a new episode of Gaming Nation coming up tonight. I'm doing my review, non-spoilers and full spoilers review for Baby Driver. It was an amazing movie. It was a very, 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 very good movie. It almost made me see what Ant-Man might have been like if Edgar Wright had done Ant-Man. So don't forget to check that out. But, guys, as I always say, if there is anything else, thanks for watching and have a good one.
Fandoms Anonymous.